Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rachel Feinstein. I'm the Director of DC Government and Community Relations with the JCRC of Greater Washington. I'm thrilled that so many of you have signed up to join this webinar to hear from Councilmember Janeese Lewis-George, currently serving as the Council Member for Ward 4, previously worked as Assistant Attorney General under DC Attorney General Racine, and now candidate for Mayor of DC. So thank you, Councilmember Lewis-George, for making time in your schedule today, especially during the busiest time of year for the Council, to speak with us. And before we begin, I'll provide a few disclaimers and logistics for today's webinar. The JCRC is a 501c3 tax-exempt organization, which means we do not endorse candidates. We utilize objective criteria in every election to determine who can participate in our candidate forums to maintain our nonprofit status. The mayoral candidates we are speaking with this week will be on the ballot, and they have raised at least 15% of the amount raised in the current election cycle by the campaign of the candidate in the same race, which has raised the most funds. The conversation today will be moderated by Alan Korn, JCRC board member, co-chair of the JCRC's DC committee, and a longtime DC and Ward 4 resident. The format is as follows. Alan will ask 9 questions of the candidate, who will have 3 minutes to respond to each question. A timer is displayed on the screen. We will then turn to audience-submitted questions. Some submitted questions before the webinar. During today's session, you may submit any questions using the Q&A box. We'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can during our allotted time. Then Councilmember Lewis-George will have 2 minutes to provide closing remarks. And with that, Alan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you very much. Janeese, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege since I'm the moderator. I want to make sure that you know that I and the JCRC recognize and appreciate, and we do mean this, you taking time out of your role as a council member in the middle of budget season and a heated campaign when we are less than a month away from said campaign. And time is at a premium, and notwithstanding that, you're going to give us 30 odd minutes where you could be shaking hands on the street and all the other thing and your budget stuff that's going on today. So please know from the heart, we appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
The first question for you, I think, is one that will not surprise you, but for those that have the courage and the willingness to throw their hat in the ring, to represent the people, especially for an executive position like President of the United States, governor of a state, or a mayor of a large or small city, historically and traditionally, the first question always is, why do you want to be mayor? And we'll add one little subset to that. And what differentiates you from the other candidates?
Thank you so much. First, want to just say thank you to JCRC. Thank you for hosting me. And thank you to Alan, a great Ward for resident. I'm happy to be here. I know tonight is the beginning of Shavuot, and I want to wish everyone here a wonderful holiday. And I hope you'll forgive my broken Hebrew when I say Hag Sameach. I think I said it a little bit better. It's also a sad today because I know it's the 1-year anniversary of the shooting at the Capitol of the Jewish Museum. And so I want to acknowledge that as well. As many of you know, I am a proud third-generation Washingtonian and a proud product of DC Public Schools and Howard Law. And I'm running for mayor to do what I've always done as an organizer, as a prosecutor, and as a council member. And that's really just to put people first. And I believe this election really is about that question of who do you trust in this moment to show up and fight for all of us in all 8 wards in this city. And to fight the affordability crisis first and foremost, because the cost of housing and childcare from skyrocketing utility bills are something that's really our city's grappling with, and we have to address. And I believe that my fight to block extreme rent increases and ban utility shutoffs, and my fight to put money in the pockets of working families through the earned income tax credit and raise the wages for early childhood educators, Black and brown women who care for our kids and who've been historically underpaid, are a testament to my fight for affordability crisis and why I'm ready to show up and continue to do that as mayor. I do believe that we need someone who's ready to stand up for DC in this moment as we deal with the Trump administration. It's why I introduced legislation to end cooperation between MPD and ICE. And on day one, that's what I'm going to do. It's also why I've walked the halls of Congress myself to flip votes on the Hill to support DC residents and to stop our working against ourselves. It's why I believe that we can work strongly with Attorney General Brian Schwab in this moment and use every legal tool we have to fight back. And that's why I was the only council member who went to the courthouse when he did stand up for DC, and we were able to win when they tried to federalize our police department. And I think you can also trust me because I want to make sure that government works for you, not just the well-connected political insiders, but because the government, I believe, can fix the small stuff and do more when we are working for the people. And that's what I've done as council member. When I've improved trash collection at large apartment complexes through my clean collections, or when I strengthened traffic safety around schools through Safe Routes to School Act, or got abandoned vehicles off our streets through abandoned vehicle legislation. As council member, I have led with courage and moral clarity, and that's how I'm going to lead as the next mayor of this city. And I look forward to sharing my vision with you and solving these issues together because I believe this city is better when we come together and we leverage our strengths. And that greatest strength is us being united as one in the values that we share. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Janice. And you made a reference in what is kind of meant to be an opening statement that was intended by us to standing up for DC. And that's our first question to you. How would your administration navigate the district's limited home rule authority to protect local autonomy and advance your policy priorities when they conflict with federal directives, especially or specifically, what guiding principles would shape your engagement with Congress and, yes, the Trump administration? And where would you draw the line between strategic compromise and firm resistance to federal
Love that.
interference?
Great question. So I tell people all the time, I've been fighting for DC statehood my entire life. In fact, my college thesis and poli-sci was on DC statehood. I got an A, by the way. And I always feel that it's important for us to fight for a free DC and also protect our autonomy. And I'm not going to do anything that I think will jeopardize that home rule. But I also know that obeying in advance is not a real strategy. So here's my inside outside strategy. As a former assistant attorney general, I will use every legal lever we have at our disposal. I will make sure that our attorney general, Brian Schwab, has the mayor's full support and tools to fight for our city, and that we are working collaboratively together and strategically on making those tough decisions on when we fight or when we hold our ground or when we make a more strategic decision. I will walk the halls of Congress myself, just like I have been. The number one thing I've heard from representatives is that this is the first time they're hearing from DC elected leadership. That will not be the case when I'm mayor. I will strengthen and our Office of Federal Affairs, and it won't be just one person. And my team will work with our DC delegate to forge relationships in congressional offices and strengthen our current relationships. I will do the hard work of building relationships across the aisle in the House and in the Senate to ensure we are filibuster proof and to defend DC, because that is what is helping us right now, that we are filibuster proof for the majority in the Senate. My administration will also work with grassroots organizations, obviously like different organizations on the ground, but I also have strong relationships with organizations that are national, like Sierra Club. And so I'm going to use some of those strong relationships to create strong partners who can help elevate the importance of statehood nationwide in a way my predecessors were not able to do or did not leverage to be able to build those relationships. And we need a mayor in this moment who is an organizer in chief, inspiring popular engagement in DC around the country, raising awareness of the injustice we are subject to, and inspiring thousands to join that fight. And as mayor, I will continue to do that work, but I also will work with the federal government to improve the lives of DC residents. As I said before, I will work with anyone who wants to support our residents. And to me, that creating unused federal buildings and federal space, building more housing, transforming Union Station, and restoring our local parks. But I think those are things we can connect on and grow on. And so, again, I always say I will work with anyone, but I also will stand up to anyone who targets our communities or threatens our home rule. And that to me is a real strategy on how we win in this moment.
Thank you. Both in your opening statement and even in answering the question related to autonomy and standing up for DC, you made some references to economics. And that, of course, is a very important issue to all constituencies, including the 75,000 Jewish people that live in the district. By the way, I'll mention casually, I didn't even realize that the population was that big here in Washington, DC. So question number 3 is on economics. Over the past year and a half, the district has seen the loss of thousands of jobs. I know lots of people. I work with the federal government in my professional career, and I know at least 15 or 20 people that have left their federal jobs, either been forced out or otherwise. And
Economics, yes, sir.
yeah, I'll get right to the question and give you a little time to collect your thoughts on it. Over the past year and a half, the district has seen seen the loss of thousands of jobs. I made a reference, I don't know if you cut out, that I know lots of people that have lost their jobs from the federal government. The city needs an economic boost. We've seen many cities across the country go through economic downturns due to the breakdown of the city's primary industry, such as Pittsburgh. However, Pittsburgh's made a comeback with a focus on medical research and tech sectors, with working with universities and business leaders. Our industry of import is government and democracy in the writ large sense. As mayor, how would you build back the DC economy?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. We have definitely been hurt by the federal job loss in our city. But I believe that DC still has what I believe is the greatest concentration of smart, motivated, and civic-minded people. And federal budget cuts may have set us back, but not for long. As mayor, I will make DC a city where I believe families will choose to plant roots and businesses will choose to open. And we do that by first addressing the affordability crisis and building more affordable housing, and by implementing universal childcare to lower costs for all residents. We also will utilize technology to make our city more efficient. We'll streamline processes for businesses so it's easier to obtain a license or permit. Navigating the DC government will be seamless for entrepreneurs and businesses under my administration. As mayor, we're going to leverage our great institutions here, namely our hospitals and our universities, which we have some of the best hospitals and universities right here in DC, and we can utilize them to spawn research, innovation, and jobs, and create jobs for the future. A council of university presidents will be empowered to convert research programs into employment opportunities. And these are jobs for our talented residents who have been unjustly laid off by the Trump administration. But it's also jobs for so many other people, because hospitals and jobs need people of all types of backgrounds and degrees. So your high degree earners, but also people who just have their GEDs and high school diplomas. That's the opportunity we have. We also want to utilize our universities to help us as a district government, make smarter decisions about how we implement our resources, like University of Chicago does with their crime data lab, and University of Michigan does with their traffic safety improvements, and how University in Boston and Pittsburgh and Philadelphia allow their universities to really anchor growth and innovation in their cities and bring more people to the plate. We also are going to establish a federal workforce transition center to reskill displaced federal employees and contractors for in-demand jobs, both in healthcare, education, and more. And to attract more residents, we're also going to welcome universities worldwide to set up satellite locations for communications, for research, education, alumni affairs, and to be close to the federal government, and to create university-based retirement communities welcoming older residents into the District of Columbia. And to revitalize downtown, we're going to create a downtown development corporation with bonding authority to foster mixed-use development, less office space, and more housing. I believe DC can become a city of yes. It just requires bold, creative, and innovative leadership that puts people first. And that's the work that I've been doing. And that's why I fought really hard to make RFK a good deal for DC residents. And I'm going to do that as we move forward here in all of the work that we do in DC.
Thank you, Janice. I've lived in the district since 1992 and Ward 4 since 1996. And I have to say, unequivocally, I love living in the District of Columbia. It has so much to offer. But it's been a difficult recently time for the Jewish population in the
Absolutely.
district. And the question that we want to pose to you is the Jewish community has faced an unprecedented rise of acts of hate in recent years. The ADL's recently released report on anti-Semitism showed that although incidents of vandalism and harassment are down in 2024, and that's good, 2025 was one of the most violent period for American Jews since 1979. There's an increased need, we believe, in our nation's capital for increased security at vulnerable institutions. Thank you for recognizing the anniversary of an absolutely tragic event. How would your administration ensure adequate security to protect faith-based and community organizations of all stripes and types at risk of hate crimes, especially given the threats, the strong local demand that already exceeds available funds, and the
Yeah.
uncertainty around federal support like the Nonprofit Security Grant Program?
Yeah.
I think you might have been even talking about this today in the committee. So anyway,
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I think, I'm grounded in the value and the principle that every DC resident, no matter where they are from, what they look like or what they believe, deserve to live with safety and freedom. And I hear the concerns. I hear the concerns. I see the concerns that people have about the rising anti-Semitism that we have seen. The pain that Jews around the country and in DC felt on October 7 when two staff members from the Israeli embassy were shot and killed at the Capitol Jewish Museum in downtown DC. I was horrified and disgusted. And as mayor, I will use every part of DC government to combat anti-Semitism and provide the resources required to make Jewish institutions and Jewish residents feel secure, and to make it clear that anti-Semitism must not be tolerated. It is part of the same machinery of division and hatred and fear used against Black people, immigrant communities, and so much more. And we must all work together to stop it and make our communities feel safe in this city. As mayor, I will prioritize protecting Jewish spaces around the city, as I have as Ward 4 council member, spaces in our community. Bigotry and violence against Jews is simply not acceptable, and I will continue to support security grants to faith institutions and nonprofits, including synagogues. Jewish institutions have often taken on the financial burden of the rising threats, but it is fair for that burden to be shared with the district government. It should be. I will ensure that DC's Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency, also known as HSEMA, has a plan to protect Jewish schools, like the Milton School, like Selah in Ward 4, that we have been consistently advocating for HSEMA to actually do the work, and as well as our synagogues, and to be transparent about its efforts. Don't say, oh, we are monitoring. What does monitoring look like? And how do our schools and our synagogues know that you are monitoring? What are you sharing with them and for them so that they know that that is actively happening and they don't have to have those fears that our government is not stepping up? And I will ensure all of our agencies are tasked with this level of security, including agency as small as Department of Public Works graffiti team, which we have worked with to remove any anti-Semitic marks within 24 hours of report. I also think one of the most important things, which was important for me as a student at Deal, was the education around it as an Alice Deal student. And so I will push to ensure our schools address anti-Semitism and have education actually around it in every level of education in our in our school system. And as mayor, I will be a mayor of all 8 wards, and I understand that each community, including the Jewish community, has a unique set of concerns that need to be addressed. And so I will continue to do that by building relationships and being in constant communication with our Jewish organizations, communities, and synagogues.
Thanks so much. This is a particularly important issue, obviously, for the Jewish community and others. I'll just mention as an aside, I've been a member of my temple for decades, and for the first time, really, in the first time over the past 2 years, when I go to my temple, I look and remind myself where the exits are, just so I can protect my family and my wife if something, and that's a new thing for me. How how would you structure and staff your administration to prevent and respond to anti-Semitism and other forms of hate, including your offices, maybe reporting lines, interagency coordination, community advisory concepts, hearing from the community, data collection, and then ultimately accountability for these hate crimes. That's an architecture. Maybe, if you've thought of that yet about how you're going to build your administration.
Yeah, well, you know what? It starts in how we're developing the building of that administration. It's how I've built my campaign with a broad coalition of individuals who with various expertise in different areas. And so some of the things that we are working on now is having 3 different buckets of individuals who are doing different parts of work. And so having someone who is going to be the transition chair over systems and operations. And that person's task is going to be convening a group of individuals, meeting with every single agency, head of every district agency currently, every office that we have, and meeting with current staff and former leaders of those organizations. And we're going to ask the very simple question of how do we make this agency, this office more effective and work more for DC residents? And that is going to take place over a 6-month period where after hearing from every single group of individuals who've worked within these agencies, current and former, we're going to build a system and structure that allows for that type of input and that type of efficiency. We also are going to have a chair who's doing talent and recruitment. We know there are cities across this country and places across the world who know how to do some of the things we want to champion across the country. We see that, and so we are going to harness that and recruit the best and most talented professionals to do the work with the skills that's necessary to do that work. And then we are going to talk to community because, as you know, that's my big thing. That's what I'm known for, is showing up in community and being on the ground. All of the things I've ever done have come from talking to the people who are on the ground. And so we're going to convene a chair who's going to be actually setting up community groups. So we're going to do all 8 wards in the city where we're going to bring community members together. We're going to do a lot of affinity groups, which will include our Jewish neighbors will be a group that we are going to convene a community members. What can this government do better? We're going to do our LGBTQIA community, our disability community who has been ignored as well, young people, right? How do we make it work better? And we believe that by having these 3 flows of consistent people bringing in and sharing their information and best practices, that will lead up to the top of a government that we are going to create and be ready to go on January 2nd, that actually is doing what we need to do as a district. I say all the time, our city is resource rich. We are just coordination poor. So the coordination work is starting for us right now. And that is going to be the feedback loop that we have. And then that's how we're going to create a real structure for our community. And we're going to make sure within that there is transparency and constant and consistent communication.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll get back briefly to economics. And this is an issue that you and I have talked about even with your staff, even as early as just a couple of weeks ago, but wanted to get you to comment on this to our constituency at large. As you absolutely know, the Early Childhood Education Pay Equity Fund, which provides $60 million to ensure livable wages for children and preschool educators, was fully funded in 2022 and in following years, but it was eliminated in the mayor's proposed 27 budget. This cut would severely impact DC's childcare sector, including 4 Jewish preschools that rely on it. What's your position on this funding, on this program, and its funding?
Yeah. The Pay Equity Fund and early childhood education is one of the most important things and priorities for me and always has been. As you know, in 2021, we were able to earmark dedicated funding to create the Pay Equity Fund and also create the Earned Income Tax Credit as well. And I was very disappointed that those funds were swept into the general fund and taken away from its intended purpose. We know that the Pay Equity Fund has been working. In fact, we have become a national model, and other cities have reached out to us asking us, share how you've done this. We want to do this in our jurisdiction. And so for us as a city to back away from it, to me, is just nonsensical. At the end of the day, the childcare workforce is the workforce that keeps our workforce running. And if we want to have a robust workforce in this city, we have to have a robust childcare workforce, period. So to me, the Pay Equity Fund and early childhood education is actually an economic development policy. And people should see it as such for that reason. And I feel strongly that we will be able to dedicate revenue to be able to ensure our pay equity fund is fully funded and to expand childcare access in the city and to make it so that no family has to spend more than 7% of their income on childcare. And I want to note that people talk about different policies. This is a policy that actually started in the Obama administration, Department of Education. It then came and was fully developed in the Biden administration, Department of Education. So this is a sound Democratic policy. And actually, DC is one of the jurisdictions who was noted to be one of the best to actually implement this policy because we already have a child care subsidy program up and running. And so my plan is simple to expand our child care subsidy program so that every family, no matter your income, qualifies for this subsidy. So even if you're someone who makes 100,000 a year, right? You have the ability to qualify for this subsidy, and you may be paying about $2,400. That would mean you would pay like $600. It is a lot that could go a long way. It's also an ability for us to expand access. So we want to make sure that all of our non-traditional childcare operators have access to this type of level of support and funding. And we know that our faith communities and institutions are the hub of many of our childcare education supports. And so we want to continue to do that work. And we're going to make sure we make it happen across the board. It also gives us the opportunity to use some of our government buildings that are underutilized, particularly schools that are underutilized right now. We're going to use some of those spaces. And we do this already. Bunker Hill Elementary, Ideal Elementary, where we co-locate childcare alongside early childhood education to create that and continue. I'm running out of time, but I say this to say that many people know I became a mom 18 months ago. Actually, 18 months ago in 3 days, it will actually be 19 months. Oh my goodness, he's getting big. But my son Pierce is in early childhood education here in Ward 4. And my early childhood educators, I am more impassioned about this issue now than I ever was before, and believing that our early childhood educators deserve this funding and that our childcare system can work for all DC families.
My son, who's now 25, was in daycare at Lafayette Elementary School. So
Yeah.
yeah. We really do want, as I said on the outside, want to respect your time. I know you've got business and a campaign to run. We've got 1.5 more questions. I say a half because the last one is completely fun, has nothing to do with policy. And then Rachel will come back. Rachel, you're on deck with maybe one or two questions from people who are listening and watching on their laptops or phones. So I'll get right to the last serious question. Jewish tradition recognizes the importance of home as a sacred place.
Mhm.
Affordable, accessible, and safe housing is therefore a very important social justice issue for the DC Jewish community. The budget for Affordable Housing Production Trust Fund is once again in jeopardy this budget cycle. Any reductions to the program will reduce the city's ability to support and build affordable housing, including the vital work of our synagogues and interfaith partners. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund, it was cut from 100 million to 50 million. You know these things. Where do you stand on this concept of affordable housing and in particular the trust fund?
Yeah, I think we need a funded trust fund. It has been one of the major ways in which we are able to invest in and build affordable housing as a city. I also think that we can leverage federal dollars more. We have consistently given money back to HUD as a jurisdiction. We gave $34 million back to HUD last year. And that was money that could have been used for affordable housing, was supposed to be utilized for affordable housing. Uh, we have funds that were allotted to us through the Inflation Reduction Act, $60 million. We've spent only 3 million of that and it expires in 2029. And we have the opportunity to look at leveraging and using our pension funds as an opportunity to create more funding opportunities and financing. And we've seen jurisdictions across the city, across the country, utilize and leverage their pension funds as a way to also do the work that's necessary. At the end of the day, we have to build more housing if we're going to make housing more affordable. And so my plan is to build 72,000 homes within a 5-year period. We are going to make it easier to build. We are going to streamline the processes and update the technology and do small things like just like having uniformed approved plans of housing so that people don't have to keep going back and forth and getting their plans approved. We are going to leverage our own dollars as a district and our own land to build housing. We know that we have the ability to create mixed income housing with stable, affordable rents by stepping up at the district and doing it ourselves. It works in Montgomery County. It can work here in DC. I also want to modernize DC's rent stabilization so tenants have predictable housing costs and housing providers have clear guidelines. It's a win-win for both, in my opinion. And I also want to expand home ownership for my generation of Washingtonians who want to live here and raise our families in the same neighborhoods we were raised because it was an amazing community to grow up in and is. So we want to expand home ownership by prioritizing down payment assistance and foreclosure prevention aid and support for senior homeowners. I also want to also deliver on something that I think has been missing in housing, and that is accountability by our district agencies. So that means DCHA, DHCD, our housing teams, DOB. We have to do better. Increasing building inspections and enforcements against substandard housing, creating an ombudsman to support people living in public housing, and increasing penalties for housing providers who provide unsafe conditions or violate the law. We shouldn't just depend on Brian Schwab at the AG's office to do that work. He's been doing it, but it's not his job. And so I actually want to take the information from his housing team, who's been doing all of these cases and work, to say, what are you seeing and what are the best practices we are going to implement in district government so things don't have to get to lawsuits and we don't have to utilize you to fight back in this moment. And so that is my plan to deliver more, to build more, and to make it easier to do that, and for the district to step up and leverage our own dollars and our own land.
Rachel, we will be back up with a couple of questions that she's been curating from the crowd. But the final question, which I promised would be an easy one, maybe I overstated it. What's your favorite restaurant in Washington, D.C.? Two of them, and I'm going to tell you, mine. So I'll chime in on that conversation too. We don't have to match.
Well, Andreens is one of my favorite. It's on the corner of 3rd and Kennedy Street. It is a Caribbean and soul food restaurant. It has jerk wings and mac and cheese and a jerk chicken sandwich. Just letting you all know so you can go try this out. Amazing cabbage. It's just a great restaurant. Andreen is a Caribbean immigrant who is an amazing person, lives in the Warford community, and the food is outstanding. So I would absolutely suggest Andreens for sure. And then I would say I recently went to Bilos, where they have the like you can they wave the napkins in the air.
Yes, 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 yes.
And the fish there was amazing. So I'm going to add that to my list because the fish there was amazing. It tastes like it was straight from Greece. And so I would say Bilos would be my second choice.
I don't know what the rules are on endorsements, but you just gave two of them. Mine is the hitching post. And in fact, just so
Yeah,
you know that it's not, I'm not pandering, uh,
it's good.
moderator pandering. I don't even know if that even exists. It's my birthday today. I'm 62, and that's where we'll be either getting from or going to. Is I love a
Happy
good plate of fried
birthday.
chicken from the hitching post. So,
I love
um,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Rachel,
Happy
I'll have to
birthday.
go there a little bit, and then you
Yeah,
want to chime
absolutely.
in? You want
I'm,
to
I'm
chime in?
I'm adding a lot of great restaurants to my must-go list. I'm over by Capitol Hill area, and I love going to the Betsy. It feels like a tree house when I go in there, and they've got a great selection and great team. But let's jump right into audience questions. We've gotten quite a few. We received some leading up to the webinar from people who are indeed in the audience today. So we'll start off with, can you be specific about your views on Zionism? What would you say to your allies who think engaging with Zionists is wrong? And are Zionists welcome among your supporters?
Thank you. I would say, I want to say first and foremost, that Um, first, I want to say I'm proud that my first endorsement for mayor came from Jews United for Justice, an amazing organization leading the fight for economic, racial, and social justice in DC. And I was touched that Jews United for Justice said they endorsed me because I will be a mayor who fights for Jewish values. I worked with Jews United for Justice to secure paid family leave for DC residents and DC workers, and we worked together to secure raises for early childhood educators. I've also had the pleasure of building relationships with Jewish institutions and Jewish leaders in Ward 4 as council member. And we've worked together to ensure a safe and thriving Jewish community and a community that is at the center of what makes DC such an amazing city. And I want to take this opportunity to opportunity and be clear. I will not be a mayor who includes or excludes people based on their opinions or feelings on matters here and across the world. I will always fight for your freedom and safety and sense of belonging with the same sense of urgency that we fight the ICE kidnappings of our neighbors. I will work with everyone.
Great. Thank you. And we have a question on Pepco. So many many of us across the district have seen our electric bills increase. One attendee says that their electric bills have increased by over $100 compared to last year. What would you do as mayor to keep electric utility costs down
Per
Yeah.
month. Is
per month?
Yeah, per month. Yeah.
We are going to do a few things. We're going to expand our solar across the city. So expand community solar, solar on our government buildings, school buildings across the board, and allow for balcony solar. The goal of that is expanding community solar means we create more energy credits, which reduces our electric bills across the board. We're also going to right size Pepco's shareholders' guaranteed income. And by right sizing, it means they're not given this guaranteed amount of money where they're raking in millions of dollars at the expense of us having to pay more just to meet that guaranteed income level. And that's going to be a way we lower our bills. We're also going to work with both the Attorney General, Brian Schwab, and our Attorney General's offices across the country to figure out how we regulate these data and AI centers like the one in Virginia that has been pulling on our grid. And we're going to be working with our national partners. That's why I'm proud to be endorsed by Sierra Club, is because they're already doing the work on and Sunrise DC and so many others, and CCAN, who has given us information, not an endorsement, but CCAN, who's a great organization that gives information to us about how we can do better. These are organizations that work on the national level and can help us build a relationship with Congress so we can regulate on the federal level these data AI centers as well. And we're also going to ensure that we have public service commissioners that put ratepayers first and are consistently doing that, and making sure the people of this city are the priority and not Pepco executives.
Great, thank you. And I think that's all the time we have for questions. We'll turn now to a closing statement. And if you're able to speak any further on your view on Zionism to the first audience question, I know those constituents on the call right now would greatly appreciate that.
Great. So thank you all so much. I will start with, for me, family. My mom is a retired Union Postal woman, a worker who spent her life in public service. My grandmother was the lunch lady at Alice Deal who fed our students. And they taught me to see the humanity in everyone. And they also taught me to lift as we climb. And that's what led me into public service, as a prosecutor working with Carl Racine at the Office of Attorney General and as well for a council member. And it's what led me to want to stand up to Donald Trump and his armed mask agents last summer when I joined my neighbors in the streets as a legal observer to protect our neighbors who were kidnapped. It's what led me to stand up for workers so they have good jobs with living wages and strong benefits, through the RFK Stadium deal. And it's also what led me to fight so hard for our childcare workers with the Pay Equity Fund. As a mom to my 18-month-old son Pierce, I am also focused on keeping our community safe. It's what motivates me. The protective motherly instinct I hold for Pierce and all of the district children's is what motivates me every day in this fight to keep DC safe. Together across agencies and communities with the help of our nonprofits and our places of worship and parents, I believe that DC can be a place where every person feels and is safe. And DC can be a place that's safe and affordable and where government can work for all people. I believe that strongly with all of my heart. And that's how I will lead as mayor. I feel as strongly about my family as I feel about your family. And I want to make sure we all feel that same safety and security always. So thank you for this moment. I am actually headed down to the Wilson Building because the Committee on Labor and Executive is about to pass a budget that is going to gut paid family leave, especially medical leave. And I am leaving right now to go vote no. And then I'm going to fight like hell to preserve paid family leave. And so that's where I'm leaving to go to. And I know I'm in this fight with so many of you. So let's continue this fight. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for the time today, and I'll provide some closing out remarks here, but council member, feel free to log off if you need to. Thank you for joining us today. And Alan, thank you for moderating these discussions, and happy birthday. Thank you to our audience for joining us today. If you want to learn more about these candidates and others running for office in the upcoming primary, the JCRC and Washington Jewish Week have published a comprehensive Jewish voters guide, including the results of our candidate questionnaire. I'm putting our link to that in the chat. A recording of this and all our candidate forums will be posted and shared widely following today. Remember to go out and make your voice heard. Mail-in ballots were sent out last week and must be postmarked or dropped off at a ballot drop box by June 16th. Early voting begins June 8th, and of course you can vote on Election Day, June 16th. Polls are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you very much, and Chag Sameach as well. Take care.